Faster than a fraudulent performance measure, stronger than a misplaced decimal point, able to leap complex compliance requirements in a single bound. It's Super Auditor! Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Auditors Save the World, one audit project at a time, where we bring you thrilling tales of daring audits and brave financial reviews. Here, our heroes don't wear capes, but they do wield the power of empirical evidence. Brought to you by the pros at Yellowbook-CPE. In each episode, we interview those legendary auditors who have truly rescued the day. Stay tuned, listeners, because this is one story you won't want to miss. And folks, don't forget to subscribe to our show in your podcast app of choice. And now, here's your host, Lita Hart-Fanta.
And now, coming to you from the Yellowbook-CPE studios outside of Austin, Texas, it's time to meet Mary. Mary, the intrepid audit leader, wielding the mighty power of intention to uphold truth, justice, and accountability. Today's thrilling tale follows Mary as she keeps a vigilant eye on the needs of not one, not two, but four groups: the public, the county's executive leadership, her audit shop, and each individual member of her brave audit team. With meticulous planning and an unwavering sense of purpose, Mary's work wasn't just numbers on a page, it brought real value to everyone she served. So stay tuned, folks, as Mary shows us all how courage and commitment make every audit a victory for one and for all.
So we just released a sheriff's IT audit. I have a staff member who just completed his CISA, Certified Information Systems Auditor, and this was perfect. The timing couldn't have been better. It had been on our backlog, and we had not been into the sheriff's department in many years, that is.
True.
And being a very large sheriff's department, we've got about 5,300 officers, and also deputies and some civilian staff. So it's a robust department from that perspective. And having not been in there for many years, having twofold. One, we've got an IT auditor now, which is fantastic. And secondly, we haven't been in a department for many years. This was a perfect marriage of the two resources, the two areas.
Did you just say 5,300 officers in the sheriff's department?
Yes. And we are down staff.
Okay. And your county also holds one of the biggest cities in the United States.
Yes, we are.
And so they have their own police force. So you're the county sheriff.
That is correct.
And you're sharing, I'm assuming, in some cases, jurisdiction with the city?
Yes, that is correct. We do.
Who has its own large police force? Okay.
That is correct. We do provide officers and deputies for support, for backfill of officers when there's areas. And don't forget also our county also goes outside the city, and the city has a number of big metropolitan areas with some major corporations also.
Oh, yeah, sure.
We do not have, we're very, very metropolitan. We're a very metropolitan area with quite a few people.
Okay.
A couple million people in our community from that we're serving from that.
Okay.
So
Wow. Okay, super. All right. So you haven't been there for a while.
we do look at our jail system. We have one of the largest jails also in the community here.
Mm.
We do offload some individuals from the federal courts. We do have a federal
Okay.
jurisdiction here too, a federal courthouse here.
All right.
And individuals will be housed in our facility for a period of time until they're transferred to a prison system. So we do have quite a bit of law enforcement.
Okay.
So from that perspective, we had not looked at the sheriff per se
Gotcha.
in terms of their actual systems and their IT, et cetera.
Mhm.
And having a new person who wanted to put a certification into effect and wanted to use it, we wanted to keep that energy and get that excitement and,
Great.
give them kudos to say, hey, I can use my credentials now in terms of conducting this audit. So we were very, very excited to be going into the sheriff's office. Perfect timing, great opportunity to sell the value and the benefit that we would be doing for doing this IT audit from them. Well, being such a large jurisdiction and such a large sheriff's department, we had to really scope our audit appropriately so it would be manageable. We were
Mm.
only going to have two people working on this particular audit. So it had to be manageable from that perspective and add value to the sheriff in terms of what we're going to do. And we did not want to overwhelm the auditor in terms of his, we wanted to shine. We wanted him to shine with his
Sure,
credentials.
sure.
So we really scoped this to give us an idea of the value that we could add by looking just at their IT assets. And
Oh.
as you can imagine, the sheriff's office is very, very robust in IT equipment. You
Mm.
could classify body cams, you can classify the scanners that are used from the courthouse, you could use, the printers,
Yeah.
the cell phones. You could classify quite a few items underneath the IT audit asset inventory.
Mhm.
So we said, let's pare this down to be even a little bit more manageable. And what are some opportunities that would give us a good value add? A value add meaning we're looking at IT assets from a desktop, workstation, laptop. Now, think about when you see a police officer or a sheriff deputy drive by, they have a laptop in their
Yeah,
vehicles.
they do, yeah.
Well, when they get out of their vehicles, they don't click, click, and lock their door,
Yeah.
and their car is usually running. And that laptop could be open to someone who wanted to take a joyride and jump in. And we wanted to make sure those assets were secure.
Okay.
And the fact that we wanted to make sure that those laptops were appropriately patched, appropriately secured in terms of network passwords, etc.
Mm.
So we said, let's just look at desktops and laptops. If somebody comes into an organ, the organization goes into an office area, there's a desktop or a laptop there. Do we have that accounted for? Do we have that patched? Do we have that maintained appropriate within standards?
Mhm.
So we took their inventory database and said, how many assets do you have? And we had about 30,000 IT assets.
So every officer had a desktop and a laptop, and then all the administrative.
Not necessarily. Not all officers had both. Many times the officer would have a laptop
Alright,
assigned to their squad car, but some of the civilian people would have desktops or a laptop instead.
gotcha, okay.
So there were some shared equipment also from that perspective.
So it's 5,300 officers and how many, like, administrative people? Is it like another 10,000 administrative people?
Well, I would say we're short in those areas too. So exact number, I'd say about 3, 4,000.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah, so it's much more of a manageable thing. But when we talk IT assets, their inventory database was robust, had multiple items.
okay,
So if you were to look at one vehicle, you would have potentially three assets in their database. Or if you went into an office area, you could have 5 to 6 assets in that office.
gotcha.
So we wanted to narrow, narrow, narrow to be more manageable. So we decided let's just look at laptops and workstations.
Okay.
Went out there, we chose about 5,000 items. So from those 5,000 items, let's go out there and make sure that the inventory database is adequate, meaning it contains the date of purchase, serial numbers, patches, when was it last patched, etc. And my IT auditor was excited because he got to use his knowledge of running different pivot charts, being able to go out there and extract data, pull some anomaly, delated to be using his new skills. So we ended up going out there and taking a look at these 5,000 items. And one thing we found out is we had a significant number of items that were over 5 years of age.
Mm,
Now, our policy is an asset is got a useful life of 5 years. After 5 years, we consider it fully depreciated, and at that point should be taken out of service.
oh,
Well, of those 5,800 items, we had 2,700 of those items, almost half that were 5 years or more.
okay,
So my auditor was all excited. He goes, "We have an old database." He goes, "Our database is showing that we have old items in here and they should be taken out of service. Why aren't we doing that? Let's write the issue." We had to stop him and say, "Hold on, hold on. We can't write the issue. We have to find out the root cause.
yeah,
Why do we have so many items that are out of service?" And then he started drilling down a little bit more and found out, oh, I have 1,000 items that are 3 to 5 years. So they're getting ready for depreciation also. They're somewhere in that lifespan that they should be looking at
alright,
for recycling those items and salvaging those and replacing those.
uh-huh,
And you can imagine when you're a large county, there's not enough money always to go around to everything. So you have to plan strategically.
right,
So of the items, we had a concern about, almost 3,800 items were at 3 years or more.
Okay.
So before we wrote the issue, we slowed down and said, okay, let's find out how much has been asked for in capital equipment for replenishment each year.
Okay.
So we took the IT auditor out and they educated him as you can't just write the issue that they have outdated equipment. You have to find out what the root cause was.
Yeah.
And we went over to finance and said, how much money have they requested each year to have capital improvement? And we got those original requests. And with it, they have been requesting about $2 million a year for capital items,
All right.
but they weren't getting that $2 million.
Oh.
So with it, I said to the auditor, I said, let's step back here. So they're asking for money, but they're not getting it all.
Yeah.
So the items that they are continuing to use, are they still beneficial? So the auditor's eyes opened up and said, well, they are patched. They're not being used in critical positions. They're being used in our detention facilities to do like online training, to do maybe games for individuals,
Oh.
to do like notepad, and they were not connected to the network.
Oh. Okay.
So with it, the auditor stepped back and said, okay, what is the criticality of these items?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, it's important that they're not on the network, but it is also important the fact that they're not being used in an area that they're vulnerable or could put vulnerability for our environment from a cybersecurity risk, et cetera.
All right.
So with that, we wrote the issue, and the auditor was very excited to be able to write his first issue as an IT auditor in stating what the cause was and the item.
Right.
And we presented this to the sheriff has its own CIO, certified Chief Information Officer.
Sure.
So that CIO was just like, well, you understand we don't have the money to replace this. We said we understood that. And here's the benefit our report. Our report is presented to our Board of Commissioners, and our Board of Commissioners sees what your annual budget is.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Yellowbook-CPE, the heroes behind the jumbo bundle of self-study courses. With a 1-year subscription, you get access to over 170 hours of top-notch CPE content. Dive into thrilling tales of agile, IT auditing, fraud, and internal controls. All courses carry NASBA's quality seal, so you know they've got the superpower of trustworthiness. Just click the link in the description to sign up. And now, back to our story.
And by you agreeing to this issue, we will now be tracking this in our open recommendations report, and we'll be following you through your budget cycle, your mid-year budget cycle, your capital request cycle, and it's going to now get more visibility from the Board of Commissioners who can then see you requesting this money from a capital expenditure perspective, but you're only receiving a significant reduction or a significant portion of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So now you're becoming more and more out of a guidance in
Yeah.
terms of what our standards are. So with it, the sheriff's office was elated.
Oh.
They were very happy with the fact that they had now some background support to say, yes, we have to be coming in compliance.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, what we shared with them is there's new guidance coming out from the board to state we are reducing our life cycle
Oh.
from 5 years to 4,
What?
which is going to push even more of their items out of compliance.
Oh, wow.
And with it, they were very excited about the fact that now they had the report to come back to and say, we really need to go out there and have this funding to replace much of this equipment. And here's the auditor even stating that we're not going to be in compliance currently. And but the changes coming in the new fiscal year, we need to have additional funding with it.
Yeah.
So it was a very much a win-win situation. The
Yeah.
sheriff's office was very excited.
Yeah.
The auditor was elated because he had to use his credentials and was able to show the value add.
Yeah.
It was a learning experience to say you need to combine the IT and the finance aspect of it to come to your root cause.
Yeah.
So it was a very well presented audit.
Wonderful.
And it allowed us to build good rapport with the sheriff's office
Yes.
because the fact is they were like, this is value added to us. When can you come in and audit us again?
Oh, no way they didn't say that.
They did.
No.
They actually said, "We have a couple other areas we'd like your assistance with. Would you be able to assist us?" So with that, we've actually included a couple other areas in our fiscal year 25 audit plan.
That is so great, Mary. What a success story all the way around.
It was very, very rewarding, and it had been sitting on our audit plan for many moons, and then now has come to fruition, and it's opened up, just a wonderful opportunity for everyone.
Oh, that is fabulous.
Yeah.
That's a great story, Mary. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. And now hopefully we can use that learning experience also to, the excitement that was raised by this staff member saying, "Hey, I got the credential, I was able to do this." And I had the opportunity with the sheriff's CIO,
Mhm.
"Hey, you guys, why don't you look into some other additional credentials? Here's how we can leverage that from additional training and opportunity." And it was quite exciting to be able to go out there and be able to use that opportunity to
Yeah.
to reinforce the continuing education, to reinforce what we can do within our community.
Well, that's great because this new IT auditor had been on your team for several years and he already held another certification. Was he a CIA or was he?
No.
He was not. Okay. So he decided to go.
So this is his first one.
How long had he worked for you before he got his CISA?
So he had been with us for just about a year and a half.
Year and a half. Okay.
And being with us for a year and a half,
Right.
he had come through as a regular internal auditor from a financial perspective.
Gotcha.
He had done some consulting, but he had not done any true IT audit, had not actually gone into an IT arena.
Oh, you nurturing the staff person
Mhm.
and,
Yes.
like, really walking with them side by side, making sure they get the certification, get to use the skills, talking through the report, showing them the beneficial results for the client and for their own selves. That is huge, Mary.
And it was very exciting too for them to be able to see why they couldn't just write an issue based on, we had multiple facets, but what was the real risk?
Yeah.
The facet meaning, yes, they have items that are outdated, but was that risk as much of a threat to the organization from the perspective they were not using those systems in an area that would be accessible for outside people? To enter into that, it being used as a one-off machine for someone to go out there and type a letter, and then they would have to have that if they're in detention, they had to have type the letter, and then that letter has to be transferred by someone else to print it because everything has to be monitored. Or if this was some type of online training that was loaded on here, it was fantastic for them to see the risk was lower,
Low,
even
very
though
low.
there is the risk.
Not
But
much.
then also the fact is you have to find out the root cause. You can't just say they haven't replaced their systems. Why haven't they replaced their systems?
Right. And that's so interesting that the budget is tight in the county, and then they also made the rule that they're gonna reduce the age of the assets to 4.
The life cycle.
What's going on there?
So I think we're becoming more in line with the private sector.
Yeah.
The private sector, as you know, has actually reduced the years of service for many other piece of equipment.
Right.
If you think about the number of individuals who will take their laptop and throw it in their backpack, and that laptop gets thrown on the train, and then that train, or it gets put into a suitcase and it's
Right.
not any type of protection, they're realizing that the equipment is not made for a long time. A lot of it is being used. The technology is so quickly coming out. The
Right.
technology is becoming more robust. We're finding that we need bigger and bigger processors. We need more speed. We need more capabilities.
Mhm.
And with it, we're finding that we need to come into the 21st century and align ourselves with what the private sector is doing.
Yeah.
I'm aware of some private sector organizations have a 3-year life cycle on their equipment, which is fantastic. And a server may be 5 years. Well, we're still using a 5 year for much of our equipment across the board. And now we're recognizing bringing it down to 3 years, or pardon me, 4 years would be much more appropriately
Ooh, that's a lot of money gonna be spent
to replace the assets.
to replace it. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the challenges too is if you think about our supply chain for many of the assets, we can't purchase everything at one time. So
Mhm.
we have to go ahead and phase that in. And we do need to have the IT people to configure our system for our environment. to roll those systems out, to get them into our inventory database. Our vendors would love that idea that we have the assets, but we have so many different commitments. We have to look at things
Mhm.
much more staged as to when can we actually make an asset acquisition such as this.
Mhm. So you just issued this report, so you're not sure where it's gonna go. They haven't had the next budget discussion. The results are still to be seen.
Yes, yes. But we anticipate the fact that we're showing where assets are important within our organization.
Mhm.
And we are very fortunate that we have got a very strong board of commissioners that is in tune with what is happening within the marketplace.
Oh, that's good.
They recognize the fact that technology is a means of filling our gap for many of the areas that we do not have a body to do something. The
Right,
pen and paper type of law enforcement is no longer there.
right,
And as we all know, our handwriting and our penmanship has kind of gone out the window.
right,
So technology has become the biggest thing to make sure that we're actually going out there and composing legible items that could be utilized
right,
and
right.
captured. So
Very cool.
that's very, very important from that. So it's been great. It's been great to do so.
Well, good. Anything that you personally learned out of this project? I know your staff person learned a heck of a lot, but how about you?
Oh my goodness. It was wonderful to see the lack of information that's portrayed across the organization. So even though we were dealing with the CIO at the very end to say, here's what we need to think about in terms of utilizing the report and utilizing the internal audit function to help broadcast what our challenges are. You're not getting enough funding, and you need to use your funding for this to help leverage us to be their advocate to the commissioner saying we need to make sure funding is allocated here. So to learn that was really quite interesting.
My best.
In addition, the lack of communication that downstream we're going from 5 years to a 4-year life cycle, put that on your forefront, put that in your area of concern that you need to go out there and start thinking about this in the future. We are coming up to fiscal year end right now,
Yeah.
and our year budget is going to actually be approved here in the next couple weeks.
Ah.
So, with it, if you're not building that in your budget, we're going to have a problem, even though we go into the next fiscal year.
So
So,
some of those folks you were working with were not even aware of this new requirement
very true.
because the budget office sends out this little memo and everybody goes, okay, read it later. Is that what happens?
Exactly.
Okay.
And then it's usually after the fact that it's like, oh, wait a minute, I can't request some money because it was due X amount of time ago. So,
Okay.
unfortunately, that's not a good thing.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's a great story, Mary. Very nice. Thank you so much.
I have to say, I'm very pleased with the fact that the IT auditor now stepping in that role. It was an opportunity for us to also test him out to see
Yeah.
how is he how is he leveraging the theory that he acquired and getting the certification,
Mhm.
and how is he applying that, and where as a management team where can we go out there and make sure we're providing the support for him to make sure he is growing and utilizing the opportunities presented to him effectively. So it's a great opportunity for us to see him grow, be exciting cheerleader in our department, and then also where we can actually help him be an asset in the organization. Now we have to make sure he doesn't get snatched up by the sheriff's office and brought over to their area. So
Uh-oh.
that has happened before, so we don't want that to happen again. Not right away.
But your, care and mentoring and guidance through this thing, I mean, if he's gotta be aware of that and that that is a rare thing. He did have a history in another organization, so he's probably very grateful for your care, for your, involvement in his career.
And the thing is, as a young man with, a young family, and the thing is to making sure he can grow within the organization, it
Mhm,
does open doors. It does open up the opportunity for him to
mhm,
develop the relationships, to have mentors.
mhm,
And that is something that we've encouraged is, okay, now that we've completed this audit, you've met a number of people that are in leadership positions. Reach out to them and say, can I use you as a mentor? But I have to make sure that when I come in to do an audit, I step away. There is some separation from that perspective.
mhm. Right.
But can I go out there and use you to mentor me in certain areas that I need to become more proficient in? So that's a great opportunity for him to actually utilize his opportunity to expand his career, his knowledge, and his exposure. Because at some point, he's going to want to go and do something different and more exciting. And I have no problem with the fact of him going into our sheriff's office and being a support asset for him.
So you're taking care, as a good internal auditor does, of the whole city, the whole organization, your own organization, and your team all at the same time. That is a juggling act.
And that's what a leadership, that's what I'm trying to do as a leader is
Uh-huh.
to make sure that I'm growing my people,
Uh-huh.
building relationships within the county,
Mhm.
and making sure that the county is getting the value that they pay for us. The citizens pay a lot of taxes, and those taxes they need to make sure are being used appropriately. And it's sometimes we're, doing audits that people don't like. This was a very fortunate opportunity for a good audit that people were happy with. But, not everything is going to be, roses. Everything is
Right.
not always going to be the greatest thing. But the thing is, too, we added good value to this. And I'm very happy with the fact of both sides of the equation, the auditee and also my auditor both learned, grew, and developed a great relationship. So now if we have a question, we can make that phone call to the sheriff's office and say, this is an area that we have a question on. Can you assist us? Because we're looking at a different portion of the organization. Can you provide guidance to us? So
Yeah. That really shows the power of intention, Mary. Your intention shaped this whole project. Excellent work.
thank you. Thank you. I have to say, I have to put it to the staff. They're the ones who made it happen.
Yes. Yes. Congratulations to the staff as well.
Very true. Very true.
Excellent work, guys. Thanks for serving your county. Thanks for serving our country. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, brave listeners, for joining us on this adventure. We appreciate your loyalty. Take a moment to subscribe and share this podcast with all your audit allies. And don't miss out on Yellowbook-CPE's upcoming webinars. Because every superhero needs their training, and Yellowbook-CPE offers continuing education that's relevant, convenient, and as thrilling as the fight for justice. Until next time, audit on!